Hi, I'm Bob Morwell, pastor of Union United Methodist Church in Quincy, Illinois, and this is episode 19 of CyberBible 2.0, our online study of the Gospel according to Luke. In this episode, we focus on chapter 7. Luke tells us that Jesus has just returned to the fishing village of Capernaum on the Sea of Galilee, which has become his base of operations. And then he writes, "There's a centurion's servant, whom his master valued highly, who was sick and about to die. Centurion heard of Jesus and sent some elders of the Jews to him, asking him to come and heal his servant. When they came to Jesus, they pleaded earnestly with him, 'This man deserves to have you do this, because he loves our nation and has built our synagogue.' And so Jesus went with them. He was not far from the house when the centurion sent friends to say to him, 'Lord, don't trouble yourself, for I do not deserve to have you come under my roof. That is why I did not even consider myself worthy to come to you. But say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I myself am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. I tell this one, go, and he goes. That one, come, and he comes. I say to my servant, do this, and he does it.' When Jesus heard this, he was amazed at him, and turning to the crowd following him, he said, 'I tell you, I have not seen such great faith even in Israel.' Then the men who had been sent returned to the house and found the servant well." A centurion was a Roman officer who normally commanded about 83 troops. In all probability, this would have made him the commander of the Roman garrison in that town. The Roman occupation forces were not generally loved by the people of Galilee, which was a notorious hotbed of anti-Roman insurgency. There were many stories of ruthless battles, ambushes, and massacres in that region. Sepphoris, or Zippori as it was known at that time, was a city near Jesus' hometown of Nazareth in Galilee. It rose up against the Romans during his childhood and was leveled in the Roman counterattack. The Jews who were there were either slaughtered or enslaved, and the wrecked city was largely turned over to the soldiers who conquered it, and they in turn rebuilt it as essentially a Roman city. Such tactics did not gain the Romans a lot of friends in Galilee. But even so, there were Romans who were drawn to the worship of Israel's one God. However, many of them did not convert to Judaism. For a lot of the men, that circumcision thing was something of a deal breaker. But besides that, full and formal conversion to Judaism would have almost certainly meant that someone like a centurion would lose his commission and possibly, even probably, be drummed out of the service entirely because he would be seen as a security risk. And the Roman army didn't have a don't ask, don't tell policy about converts. So these people occupied a kind of theological gray area. The Jews called them God-fearers. The centurion in this story probably was one, though it's not explicitly mentioned. The fact that the locals speak of him with respect and that he's reported to have helped build the Capernaum synagogue are pretty good indicators that he was a God-fearer. Even so, as a non-Jew and a servant of a pagan power, the centurion would have been seen as ritually unclean. An observant Jew would not have been able to enter his house without being considered spiritually contaminated by his mere presence. This was a notion which Jesus dismissed and disregarded on numerous occasions. He's clearly willing to do so in this instance, as he rushes to the centurion's house to help the stricken servant. The centurion, sensitive to the fact that Jewish law would condemn Jesus for setting foot in his house, God-fearer or not, sends another servant to say that he would be satisfied simply to have Jesus offer up a healing prayer for his servant without having to enter into his house. It's a gesture of gratitude and respect for Jesus' willingness to defy convention in order to come to his aid. Jesus is impressed by this show of respect and the faith that the centurion places in him. He publicly praises the Roman for his faith. The servants return to the centurion's home to find the sick man healed. This story follows a major thematic arc which is established in Luke's Gospel and then carried on by the same author in the book of Acts. God's grace transcends human divisions of nationality, ethnicity, culture, politics, and religion, all of which are present in this brief account. This represents a major turning point in history. Israel was a small nation, often surrounded and beset by much larger hostile enemies and empires all around it. As a result, in order to survive, it had to live by a faith and within a culture which was forged and fashioned to help them hold on to their beliefs and identity in the face of often tremendous and terrible odds. This required a highly cohesive culture. But the downside of that was that this same culture became much more insular and more closed to outsiders. It literally became ghettoized, which limited its ability to reach the larger world with a message of grace and hope. A faith, like a fortress, can protect you from attack by the world outside, but it can also become a prison. Jesus took the essentials of that ancient faith and used it not as a fortress, but as a launching pad. First, to reach those within the Jewish nation who had come to be marginalized and excluded. And then he went on to embrace and include people from outside the nation of Israel. It was the beginning of the globalization of a faith which has transcended the boundaries and divisions with which we have crisscrossed the world and divided humanity. I suspect that one of the things that alarmed Roman and Jewish officials alike about Jesus was the way he blurred allegiances some people had. They were far more comfortable with a neatly divided world filled with easily defined stereotypes of enemies and friends. Jesus and his followers would defy that in ways they found difficult to understand or control. This concludes this episode of CyberBible 2.0. I invite you in your comments, questions, which you can post right here. I will try to respond as quickly, concisely, and thoughtfully as possible. And of course, you're always welcome to join us in the real world at Union United Methodist Church in Quincy, Illinois. Peace.